Over the years, there have been several stories in the news, and most likely more kept from the news, about harmful incidents occurring between coaches and players or an entire sports team. Along with these disturbing incidents, there are also harmful coaching cultures altogether that disrupt the mental and physical well-being of athletes. Some well-known cases involve the University of Maryland football program and the Indiana men's basketball program. In each scenario, troubling coaching tactics and reports of abusive behavior surfaced after players came forward about the culture they had been subjected to, which ultimately led to the firing of both coaches, but not before a Maryland football player suffered a deathly heat stroke during a practice. The purpose of this research proposal is to first evaluate how a coach's behavior influences their athletes, and more importantly, will suggest a study to define what kind of coaching culture most positively influences their players' performance and overall well-being. With this information, coaches will be better able to understand the underlying effects of their tactics and how they can best motivate their players, allowing them to perform to the best of their abilities while maintaining a safe and healthy environment. The research questions to be answered will look at how athletes respond to various tactics and behaviors their coaches exhibit, along with distinctive drills and punishments that staff believe to be useful and productive. The research needs to know what specific tactics are troubling to athletes, as well as why coaches believe them to be useful. Along with this negative aspect, positive coaching methods must be identified and observed to provide an explanation of how coaches can improve their overall philosophy. This will allow to better understand the relationship between coach and player and will shed light on the damage harmful coaching practices can have on individual athletes and entire teams alike, as well as how positivity can produce better performances. With this new research, our communities can urge coaches, their staff, and administrators to re-examine the culture players are living in and instill a need to improve their practices. There is key research in the field about the lives of athletes and their relationship with coaches. Thelwell, Lane, Weston, and Greenlees were concerned with the relationship between emotional intelligence and coaching efficacy. They acknowledge that coaches are responsible for the development of their athletes, but require a level of emotional intelligence. This means they must demonstrate appropriate emotional behaviors, positive coaching tactics, and informative communication methods. The way both coaches and players perceive a coach's efficacy is interesting, as Karen, Vargas, and Hahn found coaches giving themselves a higher rating than athletes did. This points to a discrepancy between their relationship and a false sense of coaching efficacy. Coaches may believe they are positively influencing their athletes, but the player's performance may say otherwise. Cleef, Cheshin, Koenig, and Wolf sought to understand how emotions involved in sport influence athletes. They use social information theory to examine what effect the emotional expressions of coaches have on athletes. By understanding that anxiety prolongs response times, impairs attention, and decreases motor performance, while happiness improves speed and game involvement, the researchers look towards how coaches' emotions affect the overall team dynamic and performance. Cassing and Anderson aim to understand the player-coach relationship in terms of authority and subordinate roles by considering athlete dissent towards their coach due to tactics such as playing time, training techniques, and punishments. Coaches' feedback plays a critical part in how players view their performance, and the reception of this feedback depends on the timing, nature, and intent of the message. Another relationship to look at is that between mental toughness and self-awareness in athletes, and how these attributes affect sports performance. Cowden found that self-awareness is an important factor in developing an athlete's confidence and that self-insight is a significant predictor of mental toughness. Further, mentally tougher athletes can overcome weaknesses and may better cope with harsh coaching tactics. The best way to conduct this study is to involve multiple parties, including coaches, athletes, parents, and other athletic staff, as to gather varied opinions. Coaches and players should be selected from participating universities to complete questionnaires and interviews, as well as field observation during practices and games. To measure player performance, they must be tracked throughout the course of their selective seasons to appraise performance standards. First, surveys and interviews should be conducted to collect the opinions and beliefs of the participating parties. Next, observational field research will be implemented to track the progress of athletes and examine their performances. Taken together, further connections can be drawn between player and coaches' responses to the surveys as compared to the actual execution of athletes. Looking at current research in the field, it is apparent that there is a need for further knowledge regarding how athletes are affected by the type of coaching they receive. It is known that a player's emotions have a great influence on the way they perform, but there seems to also be a relationship between coaches' emotional expression and the ultimate performance of their athletes. Further, the more positivity surrounding a player will lead to a stronger sports execution. With this information in mind, this research project will help to identify the type of atmosphere that is most conducive to a healthy sports culture and lead coaches and relevant staff in the direction to best assist their players. This study will take steps to ensure a positive mental and physical environment for athletes and provide concrete evidence of ways coaches can help players perform to the best of their abilities.